Alright guys, today we're going to be working out of section 9 of chapter 2, which deals with percents. Our objective of today is just to be able to solve percents using proportions and to solve percent problems using the percent equation, which I'll introduce to you a little bit later. The first thing that we need to take a look at is just the word percent, and percent literally means per 100. Okay, per 100. Percents are seen all over the place. We see them in consumer math, we see them in statistics, we see a lot in anywhere from statistics of sports to statistics in business. So percents are pretty important, and we're going to take a look at a couple different problems today that deal with percents. Alright, first thing, key concept, the percent proportion says A over B is equal to P over 100, and you may think, what is exactly A and B? Okay, so in this case we can represent the phrase A is P percent of B using this proportion, A over B equals P over 100. And you really need to think of A being our part of our problem and B being a whole. Okay, so 4 is what percent of 32? Okay, our whole in this case, or our B, is going to be 32. That's our whole. Okay, we're asking 4 is what percent of 32. 4 would be the part that we're trying to solve for. We're asking what percent of 32 is 4. Okay, so in this case, if 4 is our part, we would set this up in our equation. We're not going to solve it, we'll just set it up. 4 over 32, or our part over our whole, is equal to P over 100. Okay, so again, that's just the setup. We won't exactly solve this one, but we will solve the next one. Alright, so example number 1, finding a percent using the percent proportion. What percent of 56 is 42? Okay, so first we need to, first of all, write out our percent proportion. A over B is equal to P percent over 100. And then we need to ask ourselves, what exactly is our part and what is our whole? What percent of 56 is 42? So think about that for a second. Of 56 is 42. Okay, well in this case, 42 would be our part. Alright, we're asking what percent of 56 is 42. So we're going to translate this into 42 being our A, or our part, over 56. And set that equal to P percent over 100. Now, once we've set up our proportion, we play baseball, right? We multiply, cross multiply by the bat, and divide by the ball. 42 times 100 over 56, or 4200 divided by 56. And this actually comes out to being exactly 75%. 75%. So what percent of 56 is 42? The answer is 75. Okay. Now let's try a couple more. Alright. If you want, you can pause the video for a little bit and try these on your own. We will solve them. What percent of 90 is 54? So again, if you want to pause the video, try these on your own, and then we'll go through the answers. What percent of 90 is 54? Okay, so again, we write our proportion, A over B is equal to P over 100. We identify which is our part and which is our whole. What percent of 90 is 54, so 54 is going to be our part in this case. Okay, our part-whole relationship. So we write 54 over 90, part over our whole, is equal to our P percent over 100. Okay. And again, from there we just play baseball. We cross multiply by 100, divide by the ball. 54 times 100 is 5400. And if we divide that number by 90, our P percent should come out to being right around 60. 60%. Letter B, what percent of 15 is 25? Okay, again, write out your proportion, A over B equals P over 100. Substitute our known values for our part and our whole. In this case, of 15 is 25. This one could be a little goofier. All right, In this case, our part is actually bigger than our whole. Okay, what percent of 15 is 25? So our part is actually bigger than our whole in this one. So we've got 25 over 15 is equal to P over 100. And from there, cross multiply here and divide by 15. 25 times 100 should get you to 2,500. Divide that by 15, and P is actually going to be right around 166.6 repeating percent. Okay, notice it's bigger than 100, that's okay. All right, sometimes it's bigger than 100%. Now this was solving using the percent proportion, and our next concept here is using the percent equation, and this may be something that you may be a little bit more familiar with. Okay, so if we ask ourselves, if A is P percent of B, we can use this percent equation. A equals P percent times B. Now an important step is if we give you a percent, we need to change that percent into a decimal. Change it into a decimal first, okay? We still have the same part and whole relationship where A is going to be our part, B will be our whole, or our base in this case, okay? So for example, what percent of 60 is 20? What percent of 60 is 20? Well, we write out A equals P percent times B, all right? Our base in this case is 60. What percent of 60 is 20? And our part is just going to be 20. So we put 20 equals P percent times our base of 60. Now from there we've got P percent times 60. This is kind of like a variable x times 60, so we would divide by 60. Divide by 60, and we get 20 over 60, which is the same as 1/3 equals P percent. All right, now 1/3 is a fraction that we need to kind of have memorized. 1/3 as a percentage is 33.3 repeating percent. What percent of 20 is 60? Well, it is 33.3 repeating percent, or 1/3 of it. All right, a couple more practice problems here. What percent of 40 is 2.5? What percent of 40 is 2.5? So in this case, again, write out your formula. A equals P percent times B. All right, our base, or our whole in this case, of 40, kind of is a good indication that that's what we're working with. Of 40 is 2.5. So we can substitute for our known values here. We got 2.5 as our part, 2.5 equals P percent times the known value of 40. Okay? And from there, it's just some algebra, right? Divide by 40, divide this side by 40, and we should get 2.5 over 40 is equal to P percent. Now, if you divide that out, 2.5 divided by 40 should get us to about extend this, about 0.0625. 0.0625 equals P. Now that's in a decimal. To transfer it to a percent, all you need to do is move the decimal point 2 places. 6.25% is our answer. Now, sometimes we're going to actually ask you to find the part, or find a different value, not necessarily just ask you what percent of this number or is another number. Okay? So in this case, I'm going to tell you that you guys can use either percent proportion or the percent equation to solve, all right? Whichever way you really prefer. What is 32% of 125? All right? We'll start with the proportion and at least just set it up. Okay? So what percent of 32, or what is 32%, excuse me, of 125? So we set up, we've got our part over our whole. We're trying to solve for our part. We're trying to solve for our A over B is equal to P over 100. And transfer that with our numbers here. We're looking for our A, or our part, over our whole of 125 is equal to p%, which is 32 over 100. Okay, so this would be the setup. I'll let you actually solve it. Right now, again, you cross multiply and divide. Cross multiply, divide by the ball. All right, take some time to actually solve this thing. And our answer that we should come up with here is actually 40. Okay? Or 40 equals A. So again, that's using a proportion. And we can set up an equation as well. All right, we're trying to solve for A, and we're looking for 32% of 125. So we would write 32% as a decimal point, 0.32, and multiply that by 125. Okay, both cases you should get A equal to 40. Again, two ways to do it. All right, proportion and an equation. Now, I'd mentioned earlier that consumer math is a great avenue or great place that we see percents. All right? And one case is sales prices, percent off. Okay? And my hint for you guys, whenever you're actually trying to calculate a sales price, is to find out what 10% of that would be and then multiply. Okay? So a shirt is normally $42.50. $42.50. Forgot our money symbol. $42.50. Kohl's has that same shirt on sale for 40% off, and we're asked to find the sales price of the shirt. Okay? So again, I'm asking you to find what 10% of $42.50 would be. And to find what 10% of $42.50, all you need to do is move the decimal point over one place to the left. So 10% of $42.50 is just $4.25. Okay, and since we know what 10% is, $4.25, to find what 40% will be, all we need to do is multiply that number by 4, and we should get our total amount off of the price. $4.25 times 4, that should be $17. Okay, so if it's at $42.50, and we're taking off $17, our final price should be about $25.50. Not a bad deal. Okay, so this is just some sales prices, some consumer math that you may be asked to do. Alright, last thing we'll do today is find a base. Alright, our example, 125, 125% of what number is 17.5? We're asked to find out what that base was. Okay, so we can either use it with the percent equation or the percent proportion. That's kind of up to you. Okay, I'm going to do it with the proportion for this one. So 125% over 100 is equal to, well, our part is 17.5, and we're trying to solve for our base or a bigger value. Okay, so equals 17.5 over our base. Okay, we're trying to solve for that base. From there, play baseball. 17.5 times 100, that should get you to 1,750, and divide that by the baseball of 125. Alright, in this case, our B is actually going to be 1,750 divided by 125. If you use a calculator on that, 1,750 divided by 125 is actually 14. Okay, and that would make sense. 125% of a number, and that number is getting bigger. If we're taking 125% of some number, it definitely shouldn't get smaller. It's going to get a little bit bigger because it's at least 100% of that number. Okay, so B is going to be equal to 14. And again, there's multiple ways you can use the equation if you'd like. So just as a recap, found percents using the percent proportion, which says A over B is equal to P% over 100. Okay, we've also found percents using the percent equation, which says the part is equal to the P%, again, written as a decimal, times the base. Okay? And then we practice solving for a part and solving for a base using both methods. Both methods. Okay? We'll work on this a little bit more in class. All right, have a great night.